Saw a poster on the corner opposite the motel. Turns out we're going to hell. No?
No.
Don't know what we did, but they seem pretty mad about it. No?
No.
This is not a very fun way to start this episode. Wait.
That wasn't right. That wasn't right either.
Turns out I'm going to hell. If I keep on being myself, don't know what I did, but they seem pretty.
I don't know
who
that is.
God hates us. All right then, buckle up at dawn, we're riding.
That's pretty iconic. Who's singing that?
Walking around these holes, busy cleansing my soul. Getting ready for the night. Damned for eternity. But you're coming with me into the afterlife. Sorry, Nigel. It's This Hell by Rina Sawayama, who I adore.
Okay.
I have so many good songs that I'm addicted to at the moment. This Hell by Rina Sawayama. I have stuck in my head No One Dies From Love by Tuvelu. Did you know that Tovlo is pronounced Tuvelu?
That's not how it's spelled.
That's not how it's spelled, it's how it's said. She was on the guest on Drag Race All Stars this week.
Iconic.
And RuPaul introduced her and goes, and special guest judge Tuvelu. And the entire fandom was like, what the fuck? Since when is her name said like that? Turns out it is said like that. No One Dies From Love by Tuvelu. Yuck by Charlie XCX. Incredible song.
I did listen to that. It
fucking
was wild.
slaps. I think those are my 3 on repeat songs at the moment. Yeah.
That's horrific.
Anyway, hey Maddie.
Hi Nick.
Welcome to What the Fuck Is Happening podcast.
Thank you.
We have 2 special guests today, just
Again.
as last week.
Yes.
Mr. Nigel and Mr. Jack.
Yes.
Both
fast asleep. Kind of. Nigel's really vibing with Nicholas.
Yeah, because he loves me.
He does. This is a lot of cuddling for him.
He's literally got his paw underneath his head, lying down like it's so cute.
It's
anyway,
cute.
Welcome to this special episode of What the Fuck Is Happening, the podcast. That is the second episode we're recording in a row.
It's so exciting. I'm so excited.
No real pop culture news because this is releasing in 2 weeks. But it's fun because we're going to review 2 of the biggest movies at the moment.
Yes.
Oh my god. That's terrifying.
They were so stupid.
Oh my lord, that was the scariest thing I've ever fucking witnessed. No, so for context, I have to be away next week, so we have to record 2. So we thought, why not go to the movies and see as many movies as we can to review the current blockbusters for our podcast. Have you already turned that back on?
Yeah, I got cold.
Y'all,
I got
just
hot.
before we started this episode, Maddie goes, I'm turning off the aircon. I'm too cold. I said, you may as well leave it on because it wastes more energy to turn it off and then back on again than it does to just leave it on.
Well, I said, I'm really cold.
It's been 2 minutes and it's already back on.
But I turned it up.
You're a psycho. 25?
Yeah.
Do you want me to die?
It's reasonable. Well, I think that'll be colder than if it was off.
I don't think so.
Well, if it gets too hot, then I'll turn it down.
Delusional. Anyway. I thought of a great drag name. No, I can't remember.
So I think we should review this chronologically.
Well, I'm giving more context. For full context, there were 3 movies that we were tossing up between. We were tossing up between Top Gun Maverick, Jurassic World Dominion, and Lightyear.
Yes. And I bulldozed Nicholas's opinion and said we're seeing Top Gun and Jurassic World.
I'm not mad about it because the only reason I really want to see Lightyear is because it's being review bombed by conservatives for having a black lesbian character, which is
animation. Who gives a fuck?
Literally
wild.
And they're like, well, it's not up to Disney to decide when I talk to my kids about same-sex couples, blah blah blah. And it's like,
what,
bro? I can guarantee your kids are not going to have a problem with 2 women kissing.
Literally,
they're not going to know.
They're not going to know.
Children do not have a concept of homophobia.
They do not.
They're going to think it's normal. That's like animals.
Yeah.
Animals have gays in their animal kingdom. So like,
so true.
They have no concept of heteronormativity. Anyway, gay.
Yeah.
Gay.
Gay.
Anyway.
Ugh.
So I'm glad we didn't do Lightyear because it'd probably just make me sad.
So fair.
The fact that I can't even exist without conservatives wanting me to die.
Ew.
For just like existing. Anyway, so we saw Top Gun Maverick and Jurassic World Dominion.
We did!
2 movies I didn't want to see.
It took 4 fucking ever. We got over to the cinema at 4 p.m.
We left at 11.
We left at 11.
And all of that time was just Jurassic World Dominion, the longest movie in existence.
Oh my God.
That's a little spoiler for later in the episode.
Yeah.
So we ended up being able to do 2 movies at the cheapest cinema in Brisbane.
We did.
In a row.
We did. And we had a really nice dinner in between.
We did.
It was really good.
So we saw Top Gun Maverick first.
Yes.
So we'll review that first.
Okay.
Chronological order.
Love it.
And I think that's important to understand. Oh, he's so tired. It's important to understand our state of mind going to Jurassic World Dominion at an 8 p.m. showing. But before that, I do feel as though we have to. These are both sequels, so I do feel like we have to address the originals before talking about the sequels.
Oh.
You've recently we watched.
I have.
You recently rewatched the original Top Gun and all the Jurassic Parks.
I have.
Right.
I did
so
my
these were
homework.
all fresh in Madison's mind.
I was. I think they were.
I, for the first time ever, watched the original Top Gun on Wednesday.
Yes.
Saw the sequel on Saturday. I did not rewatch any of the Jurassic Park movies because the first Jurassic Park is the only one that's... Actually, no, that's not true. I like Jurassic Park and I like the first Jurassic World.
Fair.
Those two, just kiss, fun times all around.
Yep.
Hey, okay, we'll talk about this. I'm sorry, I'm like already wiped up from these movies. I have so many thoughts and opinions on all of the above. Pre-warning that I've taken all of the notes, so Maddie is probably just going to be chiming in on dot points that I already have written.
That's really true
because she's a little bitch who refuses to take notes after we've seen the movie.
I did, and I want to say right now that particularly Jurassic World, but also a little bit Top Gun, do very much feel like fever dreams. I'm not sure I saw them in real life. I think they might have been a fevered imagination on my part. They don't feel like they were real.
True.
So I'm not really sure I have any points because I don't think I remember.
Ironically,
the accuracy of what happened.
Both movies are 2 movies in 1 movie.
So true.
I'm just that made sense to you. Both movies are 2 movies in 1 movie.
I get it.
Top Gun Maverick and Jurassic World.
Yeah, for sure. You mean they had 2 separate plots in one film,
correct.
Right? Yeah.
Or like 2 completely tonally different films.
Yeah.
Anyway, Top Gun, the original Top Gun, I watched the first time Wednesday. Mm-hmm. I hated it. What?
That's so funny.
I hated it.
Did you like proper hate it, or was
well, to
it
be
just
clear,
really
I didn't want to see either of these movies.
These ones
last
we saw
weekend,
last
Maddie
night.
was like, "Hey, let's go do this," and I said, "No." That's what I said. I said, "Oh,
that's true. We did."
Fine.
Well, and I
I'll
said,
see
"You don't
them."
have to come, but I'm going."
I said, "I guess I'm mildly intrigued by both. I'm intrigued by Top Gun because it's
Doing
getting
so well.
incredible reviews and is doing so well at the box office. I'm intrigued by Jurassic World because
It's doing so badly.
it's doing so badly." So I agreed, but that did mean I had to watch the original Top Gun. And much like critics of the time in the 80s, I also hated it.
I mean, look, it's not good.
No,
I
it's
didn't
bad.
hate it. I don't think it's bad, but it's
I do.
not. I mean, we discussed this at length last week. Well, 2 weeks ago, I guess, for the listeners. But the fact that it thought it was one thing, but in fact it was actually something completely different.
The original Top Gun?
Yeah. Well, they thought it was an action movie,
Please
but in
explain.
fact it was a romance movie, which made them not understand
Yeah.
what they actually needed to do in the film.
True. Which they rectified in the sequel, I will say. It was
Yes,
more action than
it was
anything
an
else.
action. It was an action.
Yeah, no, I watched the original one on Wednesday. I hated it. I thought it was boring. I thought that they focused on the wrong aspects, like you just said.
Yeah.
And I also hated the soundtrack. Because all of the songs
I love the
independently
soundtrack.
were fantastic, and it's a fantastic soundtrack.
Yeah.
But they played the same 3 songs
They
every
did.
30 seconds.
That's so true.
Anyone watching or listening, go rewatch the original Top Gun and count how many times they play each
Song.
each major song in it.
Yeah, it was a lot.
It's like 6 times a song.
Really, really funny last night when this movie started. It starts with the exact same opening sequence. There's literally the exact same words that come up on screen. It's the same soundtrack, and then it transitions into them being on the freighter out in the ocean, and the same Danger Zone song comes on. I was like, I think they've put the wrong movie on. I think they might have accidentally started the original film. It was wild.
Well, I wouldn't have a problem with that, except for the fact that it does the intro at on the freighter.
Yeah.
Of the planes flying around the freighter and then landing.
And then
but then it completely cuts away to
Utah or something.
Tom Cruise's character Maverick in Utah.
Yeah. Literally.
Like it was just so disconnected.
It was. They didn't end up on the freighter until like literally the last half an hour of the film. Yeah. It was fucking
They literally
weird.
could have done the same intro of like pretty sunset shots of planes landing and stuff in Utah. It didn't have to be on a boat again.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It was so weird.
I didn't get that.
It was weird. It was bizarre.
Anyway, what are some like context elements that we need to talk about? I think we need to talk about the fact that the love interest from the original movie is not in this one.
Not even referenced.
Not even referenced. Which is interesting because the rest of the legacy characters were all
in it,
heavily referenced.
Yeah, even Val Kilmer, who is like extremely
sick,
was still in this movie.
Yeah, that
maybe
was wild.
She died.
Oh, is that going to be awkward for us?
It might be. Let me see.
I feel like if she died, they would have talked about her.
So true.
Anyway,
what's her name? Is it Kelly?
Kelly McGillis or something?
Yeah, Kelly.
Oh no, we're showing our young age.
Kelly McGillis. Oh my god, they weren't even asked to come back. They are still alive. They weren't even asked.
That would have been so much better,
right?
Anyway, so that's one piece of context.
That's so wild to me.
Contextual stuff, I guess. What else? It's been almost 40 years since the original.
Yes.
I think the original came out in 84.
86.
86? Oh, so closer to 30 then.
Yeah, 40. Probably.
What else? I feel like it's important to say that Miles Teller as an actor, I'm traditionally not a fan of.
Me either.
I think he has quite a bad reputation on set and also
does he?
As a celebrity to fans.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why I don't like him, is because...
I think you're just making that up.
Me?
Yeah.
No, there's heaps of articles about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ugh,
he's pretty bad.
He's always just giving me the ick.
He's an entitled douche. He literally did an interview where he was like, I mean, I think I'm really, really good looking, even if the public doesn't. That kind of thing. He's just like a douche.
That's weird.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's why he gives me the ick. And going in, he was going like viral on TikTok and shit for apparently being hot.
Yes.
For the first time in one of his movies.
Yeah.
And everyone was obsessed. Mm-hmm. Gotta say off the bat, whilst I didn't get the ick from him in this movie, I still don't get it. I didn't get the ick, but I don't get it.
Are you alright? Nige? You okay, baby?
He's sleeping.
Sleepy, okay. Alright.
Did you get the ick / it?
No, I didn't. I mean, I feel like there was a couple of... See, my thing with it is... No, I did not get the ick. Which is definitely the first time ever of a movie of his that I haven't. But I feel like he wasn't even in it enough for me to, like, get it, you know?
Yeah, well, similarly to the first one, they focused on the wrong elements.
Yeah, they did. Yes.
So, yeah, I think for both of us, we didn't get the ick, but we didn't get it either. We don't get why people are seeing him as sexy as heck.
I mean, I get the beach scene was hot.
But he wasn't hot. Like, the hottest in it.
I mean, not really. And also the wiggle was like 30 seconds. Like, not even, I was going to say 30
2
seconds.
seconds.
2 seconds,
Max.
yeah. So it's like, the wiggle was hot, but then it was fleeting and then it was gone.
Wiggle. You know? Yeah. Well, I actually feel like in a movie where he's starring opposite Glenn Powell as well, it's like Glenn Powell is an objectively beautiful person.
So true.
So
true. Although they were really doing the most with his character to make me not like him.
See, I didn't think they were doing quite enough.
Interesting.
If the whole point was the original Maverick Iceman dynamic.
I mean, I think it was supposed to be, but that didn't really.
It didn't really come across perfectly.
No, it didn't.
Not badly. So let's, I guess, dive into it further.
It's so I can already tell our reviews for both of these films are just going to be a big jumbled mess, because that's what the movies are. A big jumbled mess. One more than the other, I will
You're not wrong.
admit.
Okay, Top Gun Maverick. I have a page of notes.
What the fuck?
Well, the talking points that we either talked about last night or that I want to bring up.
Okay.
In no particular order, because this is just a word vomit. I've got to say, overall, I really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd see both of them again, to be honest. I will get to explaining why I would see Jurassic
Maverick
World
again if I had the ability to fast forward
a lot of
and
it.
skip. I would rewatch Jurassic World Dominion.
So fair.
Like if it was on Apple or something. Like
Yeah.
anyway,
Put it on 1.5 feet.
I did overall really enjoy Top Gun Maverick. I thought it was an objectively, as a piece of craft,
yeah.
really
Kind
phenomenally
of like the
produced.
original one, in a way. Like the
Yeah.
the effects in the original one.
Just really phenomenally made piece of work.
Yes. It was very flawless.
And oh my god, the scenes at the beginning where Maverick's
Yeah,
trying to
flying
hit the
in
10,
the, yeah.
10 mark or whatever.
Yeah. That was impressive.
Gorgeous.
That was very, very impressive.
I don't know how much that was CGI and how much it was
Yeah.
real scenic landscapes, but it was fucking gorgeous.
But I mean, that's also very impressive that you couldn't even tell.
Yeah, there was only, I think, 2 points in the movie where I could tell that the planes were CGI.
Fair.
And that was mostly when it was a very exterior shot of them like flipping.
Right.
Yeah, it's a phenomenally well-made film. All of the acting was really good.
Yes.
I have nothing bad to say about any of the acting.
Not really. Yeah.
Do you agree? You do
Yeah.
agree?
No, I would agree
Yeah.
with that.
So all of the acting, production, fantastic. Directing, really strong.
Yep.
The only real issue is really with the script, I guess, the structure.
Yes.
And more so the structure than the script.
I would agree with that too.
Because actually this movie had quite a few comedic moments.
It did.
That
That
I
were
thought-
kind of genuinely funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that they added a lot of levity
Yeah.
that the original was missing.
I would agree
thought
with
that
that.
the original was so serious,
Yeah.
but was really about nothing.
Yeah. That's really fair. They took it.
Whereas this one, they very early on in the movie establish the stakes
Yes.
with the mission that they have to pull
Yeah.
off.
Yes. Very true.
So then the comedic elements really helped.
Yeah. Balance
pace it
that
out.
out. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I would agree with that.
So that's all the stuff we like.
Yeah.
I mean, I have more stuff that we liked written down, but everyone's good. Okay, I don't.
Let's start with the romance, because I feel like that's like the easiest thing, because it's one of the smallest things to fix.
Yeah, let's
Well,
start
it's jumbled.
with the romance. I was trying to go through my notes and like figure out chronologically what makes sense.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah, no, let's talk about the romance.
Stupid.
Explain to us the romantic plot, generally speaking.
There wasn't really one.
So Jennifer Connelly was the love interest.
So, and she was supposed to be, I mean, it's really more of like an Easter egg than it is an actual continuation, but she was mentioned several times in the original film. Penny, yeah, as someone who
Which I didn't
Maverick
pick up on.
had like...
On again, off again?
Yes, but also it did like the references did make it more seem like it was like a sexual conquest rather than an actual relationship.
Interesting.
So it was going in, it was kind of weird.
Well, I didn't even pick up on that from the original, but all I got and from context was that she's an old flame of his.
Yes.
And that's all you really need to know.
Yeah, basically. And it was so, I mean, I think it's not that the romance plot was bad. It's just that it was completely unnecessary and it was extremely jarring.
Well,
with like what had happened in the first film. I mean, I know that it's fucking 36 years later, but it's like, okay, you've established a romance in the first movie and you're not even going to reference it at all. Like, you're not going to say they got married and got divorced. You're not going to say she died. You're just going to pretend it never happened.
Very that, but I will say in this one, the relationship that they think the movie is about is not the relationship that they
Yes.
focused on.
Yes.
So, for context, in the original,
Yes.
Maverick's flying partner Goose dies,
Yes.
and he's got a wife and kid at home.
Yep.
This movie, Miles Teller plays that kid grown up,
Yep.
who is now in the Air Force and shit.
Which is intriguing. That's an
Right, well, that's-
yeah.
Technically speaking, the relationship between Maverick and Rooster is the character. Maverick and Rooster should have been
Yeah.
the main
For sure.
relationship focus of the film,
yeah.
because that's where most of the character arc and character development
Accurate.
existed.
Yeah, for sure.
So instead of showcasing that,
Well, I think what ended up happening, it's not showcasing that. It's just that it ended up being really lopsided. So the first half of the movie, there's basically no tension between the two of them. There's like a little bit.
well, there's barely any scenes
exactly
between the two of them,
exactly,
until the final 45 minutes.
Well, yeah, and so then you kind of get this inkling of. So for context, there's a rift in their relationship, but mostly it's not because of Maverick's relationship with Goose. It's because of the fact that Maverick, he kind of like he got in the way of Rooster's career progression at some point.
Correct.
And so there's tension between them because of that. And then at about an hour and a half is when the first time it's mentioned that Miles Teller doesn't trust Maverick because of his dad dying. And then in the last 45 minutes, it's basically just the two of them on screen together. I mean, maybe even the last 20 minutes. So it's like this really weirdly paced relationship development between the two of them.
Something we talked about last night was that if they didn't explicitly say so, there was no indication that Maverick and Rooster had a close relationship before they fell out.
Well, exactly. So true.
So I think
true.
both of us said we would have rathered most of the romance storyline being cut.
Yeah, it was unnecessary. Just
and
get rid
instead,
of it completely.
we would have liked to see them pre-fallout,
Yeah.
being close, Maverick being a bit of an adopted father of Rooster and such. But instead we don't see any of that, and we barely see them interact at all for a majority of the film. So for most of the film, I kind of just assumed that they like knew of each other.
Yeah, that's fair.
I didn't realize that they had an like a close relationship.
Yeah.
Which is then established that they did, I guess.
Yeah.
So I don't think they handled that, because the entire conceit of the movie is meant to be Maverick learning to let go of the past. Maverick and Rooster learning to let go of the past, so that they can become better versions of themselves.
Yeah, basically.
And that is rooted in the Maverick and Rooster storyline, which is sidelined for 2/3 of the film for the romance storyline.
Which is so fucking stupid, because the romance is not even that interesting. And nothing. And then because in the last third of the film it's between Maverick and Rooster, the romance doesn't even end up going anywhere.
Yeah. So for context, the entire movie is basically Maverick training the Top Gun students for a mission that is going to take place within 3 weeks, where they have to infiltrate enemy territory and blow up a uranium stockpile.
Yeah. Did we ever learn whose it was?
Well, no, I actually have that in my notes.
Oh.
That this is it's trying to be political without being political.
Yeah.
So it's very Red. Do you know Red Dawn, Tomorrow When the War Began? Movies where the invading nation / the enemy nation is vague.
Yeah. It's not explicitly said.
Confirmed. I think at some point it was said that it might have been Iran.
Right. Interesting.
But I don't remember that in the film. All of the...
That doesn't really make any sense.
Well, we never see any of the actual
Geography-wise.
people. We never see any... Like, I think they were all made up logos on the enemy planes and stuff.
I actually was trying to look at it when they stole the plane at the end. Yeah. I was trying to look at it and be like, whose fucking flag is that?
Yeah.
Exactly. No.
I think it's very similar to Red Dawn and Tomorrow When the War Began, where they didn't want to upset any countries, so they just said, this is an enemy nation who shall not be named.
Yeah.
And instead it just felt very weird.
Well, it felt
In
like
a
a
movie
glaring omission.
Well, correct, because the movie that strived to be so realistic,
yeah.
and then they were just like, don't look at them.
Yeah.
Don't look at them.
It was, weird. So
Felt
weird.
weird.
I mean, to be honest, they did the same thing in the first movie, though.
I don't remember that being in the first movie. I kind of just thought the first movie had no plot.
Yeah, well, it didn't really. It's very much the same as. Well, I mean, this
Wasn't
one.
it just him trying to graduate top of his class?
Yeah, pretty much. That was the bulk of the movie. But then at the end, he did actually get some real world experience.
Anyway.
But you don't know who that's against, really.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I think it might be the Russians.
Yeah, it was the Russians. I remember that.
At least they're in an actual war in 1986. That makes sense, though.
That's true. Yeah, so they're trying to. They've got a final mission to work towards, and it's high stakes.
Yes.
I loved all that.
Yes.
I thought it was very much an improvement on the original in that
Yeah,
respect.
I agree.
But the last 40 minutes of the movie is this mission.
Yes.
And the bulk of that is... well, no, not bulk. Half of that is them doing the mission, and then the other half is Maverick sacrificing his plane to save Rooster, but he ejects and lands in the
enemy territory,
Siberian wilderness or something. And then Rooster
comes back
disobeying orders and coming back to save him, also losing his plane.
And by the way, this is about the point where it started to feel like a fever dream.
I agree. It was so fucking weird. So they basically both get stranded.
And it's not that it's a bad, I quite liked that.
Oh, it was very enjoyable.
It was very enjoyable. And it was really interesting because it's like, usually what happens in these movies is that everyone just is successful and they defy the odds and everyone gets back. And it's like, no, actually yes, was it unrealistic that they both survived and then they just found a plane and they could take off and get back? Sure. But it was interesting and it was different to see them actually have to figure out a way to get back, you know?
Yes, and that's exactly what happens is basically they're stranded in the wilderness and they bond a little bit and then they decide they're going to steal an enemy plane from a hangar and escape.
Yes.
On an enemy plane and infiltrate enemy territory and stuff.
Yes.
So it went from being a Top Gun movie to being a James Bond movie for 25 minutes.
It genuinely, what it felt like to me, and again, it's not that it was bad, it just felt really disconnected. What it felt like to me was a fanfic that was like an AU. It was like an alternate ending of the real movie.
They get transported to Mission Impossible World.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not.
Yeah,
but yes.
Think the first thing both of us said outside the cinema was how disconnected the ending felt to the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And not to say it wasn't enjoyable because it was an entertaining part of the film. It just felt
probably the best part of the movie, really. The last
unnecessary
section.
I felt unnecessary.
Well, I think they just didn't tie it in well enough because so much of that part of the movie was about Rooster and Maverick repairing their relationship and trusting each other to get out of there. And it's like, but I don't really...
We didn't see why Rooster would be so invested that he would disobey his superiors to go and help
Tom
Cruise, to go and see if Tom Cruise was still alive.
Exactly.
We never see that.
Yeah.
So I think their relationship needed a lot of work.
It's the most bizarre thing. It was for the whole first 3 quarters, you vaguely get the sense that there's tension and then it kind of escalates. And then the whole last bit is the conflict resolution. It's but I didn't really get enough conflict to vibe with this resolution.
The entire last 45 minutes doesn't have Jennifer Connelly in it.
No, it doesn't. It's so weird.
So we went from exclusively focusing on Jennifer Connelly to exclusively focusing on Miles Teller. And it was what?
Which I honestly, that is the crux of the whole problem with the movie.
I agree.
In my opinion.
They focused on the wrong fucking relationship.
Yeah, and then didn't commit to either one.
It's like they got through all the movie, all of the script, and then they said, oh, wait. The movie's meant to be about the relationship between Goose and Maverick. Let's add that in now.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. They got
carried away with Jennifer Connelly romance storyline.
And just to add insult to injury, not only I mean, I feel like it's obvious, but it's still worth saying, is not only did they not develop the relationship between Rooster and Maverick for the first part of the movie, they actually didn't develop Rooster's characterization at all. So by the time you get to the point where they've resolved and they're like buddy and they're flying together and he's just like flinging one-liners and it's kind of intriguing watching him on screen. It's like, I didn't know that this character was there.
Yeah.
It's, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
You know? So it was weird.
No, I agree.
It was weird.
Buddy.
And I think, again, the thing that both of the Top Gun movies fundamentally misunderstand is that there's action in the movies, but they're so long and they're so focused on the characters that what the movies actually are character pieces, but they don't do enough characterization for it to be good at that.
Right. I agree.
So, yeah. Anyway, it's been 30 minutes. You thought we couldn't have a full episode talking about these two movies.
Review the original too. Okay, the last 2 points is yes or no, this movie is propaganda.
Yes. So is
but
the original.
entertaining propaganda.
Yeah. What were you going to say, yes or no?
I was going to say yes, but I saw this Letterboxd review.
To be honest, I'm not sure they know it's propaganda, but it
They
100%.
do know.
Oh, do they? Okay, well
They
then,
know.
Yeah.
I haven't fact-checked this. Well, that's not true. I fact-checked parts of it. But it's quite a long review, but I'm going to read it all out because it's fascinating. It's fascinating. Someone with real knowledge on these topics reviewed it. They gave it half a star. And the review is by Brett. That's all, Brett.
Brett, I'm ready for you.
Okay, I'm just going to read it all.
Okay.
Is
it going to be about how enlistments are going to skyrocket?
Sort of. I'm going to try and I'll try and find a link and post the tweet that I found these on.
Okay.
But, okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Top Gun Maverick, Tom Cruise tells the audience in a brief pre-movie introduction. Our incredible cast and crew worked very hard to bring you the most immersive and authentic film experience we could. There's real F-18s, real Gs, and real speed. So I guess in America they actually had a pre-movie intro from Tom Cruise saying, the action's real, we did this.
Yeah.
Which we already knew. So
I mean, not surprising it's Tom Cruise. We all expect that at this point.
So, Top Gun Maverick is a movie where our heroes are trying to start World War III. The US military is selecting pilots for a bombing run over an Iranian nuclear facility near completion, one which was built in violation of an internationally recognized treaty. This, of course, is the exact opposite of what happened in real life. The US violated the JCPOA agreement with Iran, and the Iranian government continued to obey it even when the US no longer were.
Intriguing.
At no point in this 2-hour monstrosity is it ever mentioned that the Iranians would strike back instantly, sinking the aircraft carrier that Cruise took off from and beginning a war that would annihilate millions of innocent lives. In fact, from the perspective of international law, the Iranian government would be in the right to do so, as Tom Cruise just executed an illegal and unconstitutional act of war on a foreign power without congressional approval. If every single one of our plucky heroes had died during their training montages, it would have made the world a safer place.
Iconic.
Brutal. Like all successful fascist narratives, this movie portrays our enemies as simultaneously all-powerful and extremely weak. To craft a story where our ludicrously overfunded heroes can be underdogs, it is necessary to pretend that Iran has advanced fifth-generation fighters, which are superior to US capabilities. This is brought up repeatedly, regardless of how absurd it is. Yet, when our heroes are actually in Iran, all of their pilots have the aim of a blind man. Tom Cruise survives a .50 caliber machine gun right in front of him by taking cover behind a dead log. The .50 caliber bullet is designed to penetrate an armored truck engine.
Iconic.
There's more. Okay. The real-life political situation that the plot focuses on, one which most Americans already misunderstand without needing the movie's help, is incorporated into a plot so stuffed with cliches, saccharine romances, and callbacks to the original Top Gun that it seems as though the entire edifice may collapse under its own sentimental weight. Sadly, it does not. So that's kind of just a wild jumble. But, okay. Even if one can ignore the rabidly bloodthirsty nature of this movie, it is still absolute garbage. The moral of this story are, and I am not exaggerating in the slightest, soldiers should ignore orders to stand down. And you should take actions without thinking about them. Our heroes follow these lessons throughout the story and are constantly rewarded for it. It is a child's understanding of bravery and honor, coated in thick layers of some of the most painfully sentimental slime that Hollywood has ever produced.
Iconic.
But to be clear, you should not be ignoring the politics of this film. It is not a film blockbuster, nor an escapist fantasy, but a clear and unequivocal celebration of US militarism. Militarism, sorry. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the not-so-subtle way the movie talks about jets. Obviously, the aerial dogfights are the real meat of the movie. They are undeniably exciting and some of the most technically impressive scenes of this kind ever filmed. But I couldn't help but notice something.
Brett is going off.
He's going off. Thesis vibes.
Yeah.
This is where it gets very interesting, or was interesting to me at least. In the first scene of the film, Cruise flies a jet which doesn't actually exist yet. The SR-72 Dark Star. Later, when describing their mission, Cruise tells us that this would usually be a cakewalk for the F-35, if not for some unusual circumstances. That's a weird thing to say. The I die. Okay, wait. Later, when describing their mission, Cruise tells us that this would usually be a cakewalk for the F-35, if not for some unusual circumstances. That's a weird thing to say. The F-35 is notorious for underperforming. All of our pilots in this movie are flying F-18s. Why were both of these jets included so clearly in this movie when neither of them are plot relevant? Because both of these jets are new products being sold to the US military by the same weapons contractor, Lockheed.
Whack.
Yeah, so then planes in this movie are being...
Whack.
Yeah. I'll read that again. Because both of these new jets are products being sold to the US military by the same weapons contractor, Lockheed Martin. Lockheed was not only involved in the making of this movie, they are actively using it to promote their jets.
Oh my God.
Top Gun Maverick is a 131-minute long ad for death. Aggressively unoriginal, wildly irresponsible with its messaging, historically revisionist, and shamelessly jingoistic, in the name of providing fellatio to arms dealers. This is a masterwork of propaganda in defense of some of our nation's worst traits, and it's an enormous success. I left the theater depressed. So that was a lot. And a lot of words.
He said so many things that I 100% was thinking during that film last night.
Same.
Like, the one that most clearly comes to mind is when they bombed the airfield. I was like, what are they... And nothing happens. They're just bombing this airfield and that's the end of it. Like, what do they think is going to happen here? And then you kind of just get swept up in it and you're like, fine, fuck, whatever. I'll just pretend that this, like, makes sense.
Yeah.
The fact that it's being funded by those arms dealers does not surprise me at all.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense to me, very unfortunately, but that doesn't not surprise me at all. I did think, as the movie started, I was like, I feel like this film would have been so much more interesting because I feel like fundamentally what military movies so often are, and this is not exclusive to Top Gun, but I mean, obviously very prevalent, is they kind of glamorize this idea of enlisting.
Yeah.
And about how amazing it is to be part of whatever it is, the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, whatever. And, you know, fighting for your country, amazing. You're doing such a great job, whatever.
Yeah.
Fuck, where was I going with this? It was somewhere.
Well,
pro-military.
Yeah, there's one...
Oh, what would have been more interesting is if, after it had been pro-military in the first one, is if he had been...
deconstructed it a little.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like he's left the military in this movie, and let's get a bit more... Let's get deeper into the effects of...
Yeah.
Serving your country for 30 years and then being discharged. Like, what does this do to him? This, like, I feel like that would have been more interesting to me. I understand why they didn't do that because it's not interesting to most people and they want to make money. But to me, I'm like, let's get deeper into the military psyche.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There was specifically one moment in the movie where I was like appalled.
Yeah.
And it's when I think just before they try and fire Tom Cruise in the middle of the movie.
Right.
They're like having a class and they're like, chances are no one's going to survive this mission. This is an impossible mission and whoever gets picked will not live.
Yeah.
And all of the cadets were just like, okay. That made me feel almost ill.
It was pretty wild. It was pretty wild how they all just like accepted. And they like, there was a couple of times where they were on the fringe of getting, like John Hamm's character said a couple of times. Oh, no, he didn't say a couple of times. He excluded trying to save the lives of the cadets a couple of times. And Maverick was like, but we want to get them home back alive. So there was like a couple of times where they were right on the edge of like acknowledging the like flagrant disregard that the military has for people's lives. And then they didn't.
Yeah.
It was really,
Didn't they literally say, this actually might have been in the original, there's like a crash and someone emergency escapes. And they're like, this person could have died. And they're like, yeah, but more worse is that we lost a $30 million aircraft.
I know that did. I think something.
Was that in this one?
I think that was in this one. They talked about, not that specific line. So maybe it was the original one that you're thinking of with that. But there was one point where, it was again John Hamm's character. And he was like, there's a reason that we have the hard deck and you don't go below it is because it could endanger your cadets' lives. But more importantly, it also endangers the plane. And they might never be able to be flown again. Ugh. Stop with those priorities, baby.
So, moral of the story is, if you can bring yourself to ignore real world context,
yes,
and if you can just tune it out and enjoy this as a action movie
and as a sequel, I think,
and as a sequel,
it was very
a legacy
much
sequel,
depended on the nostalgia of the first one.
Then it's a genuinely good, entertaining movie.
Yeah.
But don't think about it once you leave the theatre, because then you'll just spiral.
So true. And it's really hard not to think about it because the last 45 minutes genuinely are such a fever dream that you come out of it being like, what the fuck did I just watch?
Yeah.
Oh, smudgy.
Yeah, it's a lot. But I will say that this movie scares me because I'm now terrified that they're going to start pumping out legacy sequels 30 years after the original being like the norm.
I would agree with that. I think the thing that makes this one so kind of like intriguing and special is that it's not what usually happens. Usually when a movie
reboot.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like it was interesting to watch something be a sequel and to actually genuinely have been filmed 35 years after the first movie, and all of the characters are older, all of the actors are older, and they're not pretending that they're younger than they are or whatever. I feel like that's so unusual for a movie to be like, yeah, we're filming this movie 30 years later and it's 30 years later, you know?
Yeah, but that's why I'm scared. Is they're going to be taking classics and making sequels like this?
For sure.
In the trend of like vampires in the 2000s and shit.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. That's what makes this one special is it's so unique.
First, yeah.
Whereas, once they keep going, it'll be all bad.
Yeah, I don't know.
Ugh, yeah.
It's a movie. It's good. It was good.
Yeah, it was
entertaining.
It was good.
Let's get into Jurassic World.
Yay.
One of... maybe I don't know.
I don't really know how we're actually going to talk about this movie because it's so
messy.
Yeah, it's so messy. I said to Nick last night that it always just makes me so fucking mad when critics are right in panning a movie. But they were right. It's so bad. It's really bad. I genuinely was going into it being like, I feel confident that it's going to be good. It's going to be stupid, but it's going to be good, and it wasn't good.
Yeah, well, Maddie was more open than I was about this movie. So I guess for context, we should say what ones we like in the series and which ones we don't, because I feel like that will influence this. So for me, I like the original Jurassic Park, and I don't mind the 2 sequel Jurassic Parks. I think I've seen each of them once or twice. No real strong emotions about them. I really liked the first Jurassic World.
Yep.
Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, the second one, is in my top 10 hated movies of all time. I think it might actually be one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Whack. I think you should watch it again because I think you'd be surprised.
I hated everything about the fact that they said, let's make a haunted house movie, but
Yeah,
instead
that
of a
was
ghost, it's a
bad.
dinosaur.
That
I hate
really
the
was
fact that
where
they
they
cloned
started to go wrong.
a child actress who can't act.
Don't even get me started on the retconning they did for that child actress in this movie.
Yeah, so let's just say that going into Jurassic World Dominion, I was a bit jaded from Fallen Kingdom. So I was wary. What about you? You rewatched them all this week.
I did. I was wary, but hopeful.
Interesting.
I was wary but hopeful. I was worried because the trailers had looked so bad, but I was hopeful because the critics hated it, and I was like, when have they ever been right? And then... And then I watched it. And then 3 hours later, we emerged broken.
Homies, first and foremost,
Are you right, baby?
when I tell you this is the longest film I've ever seen,
It was-
maybe not physically the longest, it felt like 10 hours of footage.
It did. I think it probably wasn't helped by the fact that we'd already watched a 2.5 hour movie in this really uncomfortable cinema with bad seats, and we were seated terribly in Maverick.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that we were in the very front row.
Oh my God, it was horrific.
Literally leaned almost all the way back in our recliner chairs because that was all they physically had to install reclining chairs
Yes, so you could see the
screen. Every single face, the eyes were on different
Yeah.
levels of their face because we were looking at such an angle.
Yeah, it was distorted.
But honestly, didn't really affect the viewing too drastically.
aside from the fact that my back started to ache 5 minutes in.
Yeah, truly. But no, this movie, I don't think it would matter what time of day you saw it.
Yeah, and
I
we
think
also
it's
did see it at 8 p.m. at night.
A genuinely
It was-
boring movie.
Funnily enough, it actually had the exact same problem that Maverick did.
It did.
Which is the first half was so fucking boring and they focused on the wrong thing. And then
Yeah.
the second half was actually really good.
It's two separate movies again.
But at that point, you were like, what is going on?
Again, both
How
movies
is
are
this
two movies
connected?
in one
Yeah,
movie.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so for context, for those who haven't seen it, basically
Wouldn't blame you.
this one is meant to be the conclusion to the Jurassic saga.
Yes.
Meaning they bring back the legacy characters to wrap up all of the stories, including
Which they didn't even
the
really
world
do.
stories and the park stories, basically.
But they didn't even... Ugh! They didn't even wrap up the park
let
stories.
me get out my notes
or
to see
the
if
world
we can get
stories.
some structure
They
to this.
didn't...
I have 2 pages of notes on this one.
Okay, give it to me.
Okay.
Wild.
The entire first 70 to 80 minutes was completely unnecessary.
And bad.
They introduced about 4 main plots that could have been the main plot of the movie.
Yeah.
Instead, 3 of them were completely
Stupid.
forgotten about,
Yeah.
and 1 of them became the main plot. And spoiler alert, it wasn't about dinosaurs. The main plot of this film was not about... This movie was not about dinosaurs.
No, it wasn't.
This movie was about giant locusts.
Well, I mean, I feel like a bit deeper it was about genetics and genetic power.
Well, yeah, but I'm
Which
saying it's
then
not about
translated-
dinosaurs in the
but
same
then-
way the original Jurassic Park's
No, right.
about dinosaurs, but
Right.
it's really about...
So what kind
Genetic
of has
mod-
happened? Yeah, modification.
modification.
Yeah. What's kind of happened is I feel like they were all like, oh my God, we can't do more dinosaurs in a park. Let's go deeper into genetics. Oh my God, let's go to locusts. It's like,
But they
what?
did that, and then they ended up the second half of the movie saying, actually, let's just go back to dinosaurs in a park.
Yeah.
Which
Which was the best part of the...
frankly, I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
I think that it should have been the exact... All 3 original movies were dinosaurs in a park.
Yeah.
The first and third
Dinosaurs on the
Jurassic Worlds
island.
were just dinosaurs in a park.
Yeah, on the islands. Yep.
Even
Even Jurassic World. Yeah.
well,
Jurassic
the second
World.
half of Dominion
Yeah.
was dinosaurs in a park. I personally prefer it when they stick to that, but introduce new elements
Yeah, I
and
agree.
invigorate it. So, for example, the Hunger Games books.
Yeah. Yeah, with catching
book,
fire.
well, no, every single book in the trilogy is about being
Games.
in an arena.
Yeah, sure.
So the first movie, it's the normal arena. The second movie, it's the clock arena, and it's
Yeah.
introducing
So true.
the past winners and all that. So it's introducing new elements, and they're able to tell a new story in a similar setting. with
Yep.
New things. The third book is
The city is the arena.
the city is the arena.
Yep.
And I really like that because it's able to be a through line, and it's able to be similar, structures and shit.
The skills of a character
while
are like,
introducing new things and
keeping it interesting.
Yes, which is why both of us, when halfway through the movie, it becomes Dinosaurs in a Park, actively started to enjoy it.
And see, this is the most infuriating thing about this movie, is the second half actually genuinely was very enjoyable. And I would even argue it was quite well made. And not well made in terms of plot, because at that point the plot's so all over the place that there's not really much they can do to recover it. Yeah.
You mean...
But I mean, like...
tension-wise and shit?
Yeah. And it was they were doing different
scenes.
things with the dinosaurs. For example, they actually reverted back... Well, not reverted back. They introduced this idea of them actually being, like, proper thoroughbred dinosaurs with no introduced genomes, which meant that they actually had feathers, for example, which is like, wow, that's cool to see in a Jurassic Park movie. They're actually keeping up with modern science and modern paleontology and modern discoveries, and they're introducing that into the film, that's cool. I liked that.
I did too.
Which is why, again, I would argue the second half is like well made. It was different. It was the same. It was like Hunger Games, as you said. Same thing, but different. But the first half was so bad. I think this movie would have benefited from the 3-act structure. Yes. Had the first act been the setup, yes, I think it would have been fine. Yeah. But instead, the full first half is setup. Yeah. And the full second half is payoff. And I also think that the issue with the setup is what we were kind of saying before, is that they're setting up something fucking completely different, which is not dinosaurs. Yeah. Which is so just let's say wild. For, I've got it written down. Basically, they introduced plots. The beginning of the movie, they kept introducing us to new settings. Yeah. New countries, and they kept being like title cards at the bottom saying where we were. I know. Literally, when the fourth one came along, I turned to Maddie and sighed. Yeah, it was ridiculous. Okay. It was ridiculous. I hate when movies do that. The only movie I've ever seen do it moderately well is Captain America Civil War, and even then didn't enjoy it. But that was probably the best that I've seen it be done, which is mostly because... Well, actually, this is not about Civil War. But no, when it's... The thing that infuriates me about it is that it is exposition. That's what it is. And that's what the whole first half of this movie felt like. It was just all exposition. The movie opened with a fake news sequence. I was like, this is not good story. If they need the first 2 minutes of this movie to be a news segment that's not even real, like, why can't they just tell me? Why do they have to, why can't they? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why doesn't this just come up as the plot is moving forward? Why am I... been clear enough. Yeah. Without... Oh my God. Exposition is one of those things that just immediately makes me go, oh, so they didn't know what they were doing when they wrote this movie. Yeah. So I wrote down the first 30 minutes of the movie is just introducing new plot points, three of the four, 3/4 of it I've forgotten about. So my note specifically says there were like 30 minutes before we were introduced to the Locust, which was the main story. Yes, it was. Which, spoiler alert, the main story did not involve Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard's characters. No, it didn't. Which is also infuriating. So. Not that we like Chris Pratt, but like, just make the movie fucking make sense. So, the first 30 minutes of the movie, we had to sit through the baby dinosaur rescue at the beginning. That was so Bryce unnecessary. Dallas Howard's character rescuing. That was that never came back. So that could have been a main plot by itself, was liberating dinosaurs that were captured. Which is basically what the second movie was, so we didn't need to rehash that. True. The next one was the cloned child sneaking out into town and helping the townsfolk move dinosaurs along. So weird. We didn't need that intro. No. We then had Owen/Chris Pratt wrangling dinosaurs on a ranch. So weird. Why did we need that? Didn't. Next, we had Ellie discovering the Locust, which was actually the main point. Yes. And then the fourth one was... then there was also Alan Grant. They introduced like an entire element of him having to sell out and turn his dig sites into like... Tourist attractions. I mean, I don't really feel like that was introducing a plot that more felt like it
Well,
was
no,
supposed to
but
be
my thing
character.
specifically says that we had super in-depth introductions to every single character.
Oh yeah, that's so true.
Including Ian Malcolm being working for the villains. So there was Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, Clone Girl,
Well, you didn't even introduce
Ellie
the
Allen,
poachers.
and Ian. Well, yeah, pause. So 6 main characters,
Yes.
and every single one got a detailed introduction in this film.
They did.
Which we did not need.
No.
There was 5 films before this introducing us to these characters.
I mean, particularly considering that all of the characters like are intertwined anyway. All of them knew each other. It's not like we needed to have individual backstories. You could have fucking easily have had us introduced to Owen and Claire together.
It seemed like Claire and Ellie already knew each other.
Did
Or
it?
knew of each other.
I think they all knew of each other, but I don't think they knew each other.
So anyway, individually introducing each character and where they are at was unnecessary and wasted 20 minutes of the intro.
It did.
And then plot-wise, we were introduced to this government-backed agency,
Biosyn?
Basically, there was
They're like a pharmaceuticals company.
the main plots they introduced was poachers
Yes.
and black market dinosaur trading.
Yeah.
The clone stuff,
Yes.
and the locust.
Yes.
So there was 3 main plots that they introduced. Oh, sorry, and the clone / kidnapping stuff. So there's 3 main plots that they introduced. Only one of them was the main story, and that was the locust.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I would probably say the kidnapping thing did.
See, I just don't think that was necessary.
No, of course not. I mean, I would say that they did follow that through to its end conclusion, but the end conclusion was like
an hour
halfway
from the beginning.
Yeah, I was going to say it was
an
halfway
hour
through the
from the
movie.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they... I think this is just my
It's
long
just
way.
badly paced.
My long way of saying that they... Owen and Claire's storyline is trying to rescue their adopted clone daughter
Maisie.
and the baby velociraptor dinosaur.
Which is also so weird.
Trying to rescue them from the kidnappers,
yes.
who
the
are poachers and also a secret shady government agency.
Yes.
And then also black market dinosaur traders, and then it turns out all controlled by Biosyn.
Do you know, I went online last night, obviously onto AO3, because that's where I just go after I watch a movie. And one of the most interesting things, and I think this was actually supposed to be in the movie and it just didn't come across, was that the main CEO guy, Dodgson, was actually in the first movie.
They recast him.
Right. So, but what I mean is that he was the one who was trying to steal the embryos from InGen, and Biosyn is supposed to have been obviously the company that was trying to steal. So I feel like the idea of this company, the bad guy in this movie, actually being the ones who had been trying to catch up on genetic modification, et cetera, et cetera. And then obviously we had Henry Wu, all in the other 2 fucking Jurassic World movies, working for this other company that we never got a name for, but that was obviously supposed to be Biosyn. It's like, okay, that's kind of interesting. Why was that never explicitly said in the movie, in a 2.5 hour long movie?
Well, yeah.
Why did they not actually bring that together? Like,
agreed. Can we talk about the villains?
sure.
I would like to talk about the villains. I think I wrote down who they are. Oh, no, wait. Let's finish off our thoughts about the storylines first. So, we both, after the movie, kind of realized and figured out that our problem with this movie was it was an ensemble piece
Yes.
with lots of leads.
Yes.
And we compared it to Game of Thrones and Stranger Things.
Yes.
Ensemble pieces with separate story where the characters are broken into smaller groups and telling different storylines that then converge.
Yes. Which I have no problem with.
I have no problem with. We were talking about how well Stranger Things does it, and we realized that the reason that Stranger Things is so good at this ensemble storytelling is because every single storyline, main storyline, is equally
Yes.
as
important.
intriguing, is equally as important, and engaging.
Yes.
The thing about this movie
Yes.
was that we had two major storylines, allegedly.
Two
which
major
was the
groups.
kidnapping storyline
Yeah.
and the Locust evil Bayusin storyline.
Yeah.
The Locust storyline was inherently far more interesting. I think a lot due to the fact that it's a mystery.
Yeah, that's
They
fair.
were unraveling.
That's really fair.
I think also it starred the legacy characters.
Yes.
And I think just generally...
Well, they just made it more... Yeah.
more interesting. So
Yeah.
their storyline was more interesting, which then left Bruce, Owen and Claire's storyline to be the secondary, boring storyline of them literally just
Trying to get back Maisie.
having
Which
also
is not
said that.
inherently a bad storyline. It's just when compared to a Locust storyline, which also is, by the way, not inherently a good storyline.
Well, no, but it is like literally world-ending consequences.
The Locust one.
The Locust storyline is quite literally they're eating all of the world's crops.
Yeah.
So the world will die. So it was the stakes
So
of the the entirety of humanity versus the stakes of Clone Girl not getting rescued.
Who we don't even like because she's a bad actress.
Well, that was my other point, is that
Well, she did better.
independent
in this
of that, the acting, they spent the entire introduction of her character in this film
making her unlikable.
making her unlikable. She spends the whole time saying, "You're not my real parents,"
Yeah.
and disobeying them and going into town despite knowing it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And then she gets herself kidnapped because she sneaks away.
Yeah.
I don't know how we were meant to be really rooting for that.
It's so true.
They also introduced a storyline about a third of the way in about the black market dinosaur trading in which there's raptors trained
Yeah. With
to
the laser.
relentlessly hunt anyone who this laser touches.
Which they did. Well, they actually, that was a point from the Indoraptor at the end of
Yes.
Fallen Kingdom,
Yes,
but
yes,
still
yes.
stupid. Stupid.
I
I think the thing is that it's like, okay, so we have these locusts and it's a world ending. They're eating all of the crops. This is a disaster. But we already had a world ending disaster, which was the fucking dinosaurs being Why? Why is this movie about locusts? Why isn't it about dinosaurs?
Yeah, we both decided that it would have better served the plot if instead of locust
It was dinosaurs.
there was a problem with the dinosaurs. Either,
Yeah.
Well, fucking the fact that this movie literally had mind-controlled dinosaurs,
Literally.
the plot of this film could have been Bayusin is mind-controlling dinosaurs to attack rival plants, to attack industries that they could bid for to make money.
Yep.
Easily.
So true.
That could have been the plot. Instead, they introduced giant locust. I just don't get it. Like, there was
It doesn't make any sense. It's actually infuriating.
that simple thing that, one, would have made the movie about dinosaurs, and two,
Made it so much better.
made it less ridiculous.
It's so weird. It's just so weird. So weird. I will say the one thing that I liked that was consistent throughout the whole movie was Claire and Owen were actually in an established relationship that did not encounter any problems. And while I feel like people could argue that makes it boring, which I guess is technically true, I found it's very unusual that movies actually...
I'm actually thankful that they didn't
Yeah.
waste time
So true. So
making
true.
them be broken up to then have to get back together and then have a fight
Which
and
is
then
just
stay
so
together.
fucking... Oh my God. That happens all the freaking
So that's like
time.
one of the things that we both
Yeah.
liked.
The only movie series that I've ever seen actually keep the main characters together, which, because usually what happens is they either break up or they fucking just don't have the female back. They just recast the love interest. The only series that I've ever seen them actually stay together and develop the relationship further as established is The Mummy series
Interesting.
from the 90s. So,
Interesting.
Yeah.
We know that these reviews are all over the place, but that's because the movies are,
So,
and it's impossible to gather our thoughts and opinions on these because they're a mess.
mess.
I want to now talk about the villains.
Okay, right, sorry.
Well, let's just say, let's talk about the
But bro, we've been recording this for longer
I
than
know,
we did.
we'll wrap it up. We'll talk about all the new characters. So
Okay.
first I want to say we really liked that they didn't break up Owen
Yes.
and Claire. We also both really, really enjoyed the new character,
Yes.
the new good characters that they introduced. So they introduced DeWanda Wise as Kayla, and Mummy Do Ashy as Raymond.
Yes.
These two new characters,
intriguing.
I thought they held their own against the legacy cast and stuff. They did. They had screen presence, they had charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. And they were both just really enjoyable and really good additions.
Yes.
However, them being fantastic additions really made it glaringly obvious that the villains ate shit.
Yeah. So true.
So we had...
And to be honest, also made it really glaringly obvious that they gave no characterization to Owen and Claire.
There was 5 villains.
That's way too many.
There was 5 villains in this film. The main villain is Dr. Dodgson.
Yes.
When I tell you his performance was the definition of phoning it in.
It was so fun. When he was introduced, which by the way was in the most chaotic scene I've ever fucking witnessed. Truly. As soon as he left screen, Nicholas turned to me and was like, "What?"
And then literally Ellie on screen said
so
what.
True.
Which
is when we realized it was purposeful and not.
I think they were trying. I think they were trying to convey that he publicly put on a persona of a bumbling, eccentric bumbling, billionaire, and then in private he was like this mastermind evil guy. But instead, the acting was just horrible, and he gave 0%.
He gave
it was like the most
less than
boring
nothing.
Villain in film history.
Fucking, I tell you what, the T-Rex almost dying, and then like her eye dilating, and then she came back to life and killed whatever the Gigantosaurus thingy. That CGI T-Rex gave more than that dude did.
Period.
And that's that on that.
Very that. So that was the first villain, not off to a great start. Well, I mean, he wasn't actually introduced until about 45 minutes. And then he had too much screen time.
Oh.
We had B.D. Wong coming back as Dr. Wu.
Yes. Yes.
His villain story
like the
was
most
fine.
consistent character.
I actually really enjoyed him because he was giving it his all.
He was.
He was like trying to do the most with the script that he could. He gave emotion in all of his scenes, which I thought was really good.
And he finally got a redemption arc.
Yeah.
After 6
So
movies.
his villain was actually a quote unquote villain. He reformed villain, I guess.
Yes.
Was good. Okay, now the beginning of the movie had
the poachers.
The poachers.
Horrific.
The leader of the poachers
had a tattoo on his face.
Had a tattoo on his face and long hair.
Which is all you need to know.
And was horribly acted. I feel like they gave him the note to be like, they said, you're a dinosaur poacher. Make it like Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean or something.
So
true.
Act
wacky. And instead it just comes off as ridiculous. Next we had the black market smuggler lady.
Anya from the 100.
Anya from the 100 and Daisy's mum from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think she's Australian. Her name's like something Lachlan.
I'm not sure.
Dyken Lachlan or something. Anyway, she was this like eccentric smuggler. All of these villains from now on have no point to the movie. No role.
No.
She had like 30 minutes of screen time for no reason.
No reason. She could have been cut entirely.
Yeah, the entire Malta sequence should have been cut.
Oh,
to be
it should
honest.
have.
Anyway, so the smuggler, the poacher, the smuggler, both terrible villains. Next, we also had the Australian, Dr. Dodgson's Australian goon sidekick man.
Oh, did he even have any lines?
He had like maybe 10 lines.
Whack.
And at the end, he like abandoned Dodgson.
Did he?
So he had his own character arc, and I was like, what was the point in introducing this character?
That was weird. I don't remember that.
Just mess. So they...
It's actually hard to adequately describe how much of a mess this movie was.
It's true.
Because you don't... Like, I feel you can't really conceive of the absolute nonsense plots that they introduced, e.g. that the movie's not even fucking about dinosaurs until you see it. Because that doesn't make any sense. It's fucking the 6th movie in the Jurassic Park saga. Of course it's going to be about dinosaurs, but it's fucking not.
It's not.
What? It doesn't make any sense. It felt like they were like, oh my God, what is a big environmental issue? Farming, such a big issue. All our plants are dying. Let's do something with that. Let's get that in. Let's bring that in with genetics. Let's make something of that.
Yeah.
Weird.
Let
Weird.
me see if there was any other points that I had.
Oh, so weird. I also thought it was really, really, really
we've touched
weird
pretty much everything.
that Ellie in this movie, in the original movie, she's a paleobotanist, which basically just means she studied plants in dinosaur times.
Right.
But in this movie, she's obviously had a career change because that's not what she's doing anymore. She doesn't do dinosaur stuff. She just does like normal plant stuff. And I was like, okay, when you think about it, that makes sense because you're obviously traumatized from Jurassic Park. She's moving on. But why didn't they say? They just didn't. They just introduced it as if it was like normal. They were like, yes, she's just now saving the planet from locusts. I don't know. Did that not annoy you as much as it annoyed me?
No, because they were Jurassic locusts.
I mean, that's really fair.
So
but
it is still still within her field. Like, I'm
yeah,
assuming
I didn't feel like that was like.
If she had to study the Jurassic botany, then she surely would have had knowledge on locusts.
No, but that, yeah, I mean, yes, but that didn't feel like what they were saying because,
No,
you know.
yeah, no, I get what you mean. Yeah,
like
okay,
Alan
true.
was all like, oh, you're in regenerative farming now. It's like, what?
Did he say that?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, see, I didn't even pick up on that. That was 45 minutes in. I was genuinely falling asleep.
No, that was when they introduced Alan.
Which was 45 minutes in.
Was it?
Locusts weren't introduced for 30 minutes.
Whack.
Literally,
Are you okay, Najee?
it got to
He just almost fell off the chair.
an hour 20 into the movie, and I looked at my watch because I had just almost fallen asleep. My eyes shut, and I had to like actually wake up. I showed Maddie the watch, and I was like, "We're not even having no.
Yeah.
It was painful.
It was horrific.
I cannot stress how boring the first half of the movie is.
Yeah.
All the
What was your
introductions,
favourite-
all the Malta stuff. Ugh.
What was your favorite scene in the movie? Because I actually
My
have
favorite
one.
scene was when Claire first lands in the new park and she has to sneak away from the giant feathered dinosaur and she like sneaks into the water.
That was my favorite scene
Yeah, because
too.
it was classic Jurassic Park.
Yeah, and it was really, really good.
It was tension filled.
It was.
And the CGI and
and
stuff
very,
was good.
Yeah, it was.
Which, by the way, the CGI in this movie horrible.
Bro, I was genuinely shocked. The Velociraptors at the beginning, shocking. I couldn't believe that was on my screen.
Yeah,
I was like,
I kind of decided that the reason the CGI in this movie looks so shitty is because they did actually use a fair amount of animatronic dinosaurs in this
did
movie.
they?
All the baby dinosaurs were animatronic. Any close up
Oh, yeah, that's true.
touching
That's true.
of dinosaurs
Yeah.
was animatronic.
Yeah.
And like you could tell when they were puppets, but
Yeah.
at least they looked real. They would then put CGI dinosaurs next to the animatronic dinosaurs,
horrific.
next to real life horses, next to real life humans. So it was
weird.
just so glaringly obvious which
On
one.
CGI
It was almost
backgrounds.
cartoony.
Yeah, it was weird.
A lot of the dinosaurs were almost cartoony, Nigel.
It was so weird. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, all right. These two are obviously waking up, so I'm going to have to go.
But yeah, this is
Yeah. Oh my God. Horrific. Absolutely horrific.
the last thing I have that I haven't mentioned is that I was genuinely shocked by how little screen time Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard have.
Same.
I think when it comes out on digital, I need someone to do the numbers because I think that the legacy cast had more screen time than Owen and Claire.
That's very possible. It might have just felt like that because they had the actual plot of the
Screen
movie.
presence as well.
Well, that too, but yeah. Oh, so weird. So weird.
So messy.
So messy.
So yeah, my review of the movie is truly the first half is one of the worst things I've ever had to fucking witness.
So true.
Truly
It's pretty
boring,
bad.
truly convoluted.
It was really not good.
Once they get
I
to the
actually would argue that the first half of this movie is worse than the second half of Fallen Kingdom.
I'd probably agree with that. But then the second half of this movie,
It's really
once
good.
they get to the park and all split up, I think was far better than anything the Jurassic Park sequels did or Jurassic Fallen Kingdom did.
I would agree with that. I think I would agree with
Because
that.
they went back to the roots of just being
In a park.
different small groups of people
Yeah.
trying to make their way through a park of dinosaurs.
Yeah, and it was interesting because at that point the legacy characters and this trilogy's mains had all met up. And so
No, that was probably 45 minutes from the end. There was, I'd say, a good 50 minutes of everyone separate. There was Owen and
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Skylar,
Yeah, that's fair.
Kyla. Owen and Kyla being separate, Claire being by herself, Alan and Ellie sneaking around getting samples, the clone daughter.
Ended up with Alan and Ellie and Malcolm.
She was alone for herself for a while with BD Wong. And then Ian Malcolm with his protege.
Yeah.
So, like, all that I enjoyed.
Right. Yeah. We'll see. Well, what I was going to say was, and it actually still pertains to that, is that what they did that was really interesting is they had all of the people as a group, which was good, but not for so long that you were like, this is intense to watch.
Yeah.
They ended up breaking everyone up into groups, but they mixed everyone.
Yeah.
And every time people broke off into groups, they were mixed with different people. So it kept being interesting to be like, oh, how did these two interact? Oh, how are these two going to interact?
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like, oh, here are Ali and Ellie again.
Yeah.
We're doing a weird, awkward romance plot, you know?
So overall, I think I'm just mad about this movie because
It could have been good.
the second half proved that if they had have simplified the plot
Yeah.
and cut an hour from the beginning
Yeah.
and made this
And an hour. It's a solid
it
hour.
only needed to be an hour 50 long.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think that this could have been a genuinely great Jurassic Park movie,
It could. It would have been a really good conclusion.
but instead they overcomplicated everything. They tried to say too much about climate change and cloning and dinosaurs and locusts and agriculture that they said nothing.
Genetics.
They ended up saying nothing.
Yeah. So disappointing. Sorry, babe.
And also terrible villains, terrible plotting,
Terrible pacing.
terrible pacing.
Yeah. Bad.
My highlights, my two highlights were DeWanda Wise's character, the Kyla. I really enjoyed her. And also Jeff Goldblum's clearly improvised commentary over the final 45 minutes. It was so completely out of place, but also so iconic.
It was so... I think the thing that really infuriates me is that he actually was in the first movie. He said some really insightful things. And then even in Fallen Kingdom and then in this movie...
It was just quips.
All of his like monologues were absolute nonsense.
Oh, okay.
It's like, what are you talking about? What does this have to do with your character? What does this have to do with your job? What is this even really saying about dinosaurs and genetics? Fucking nothing. You're literally just saying that we're headed for an apocalypse, which I can fucking do. It's not interesting, you know?
I think I do. I get what you mean. But the climax of the movie, when they're trying to divert the power,
Yeah.
they have to split up into three again.
Yeah.
And everyone gets a radio.
Yeah.
And the entire segment, like 15-minute segment, is just narrated by Jeff Goldblum making jokes and being quippy. And it made no sense in the plot of the movie.
No, it didn't.
But it was very funny.
It was very funny.
And very
It did have some pretty good humor, I would say, in the second half. First half had nothing. It was giving nothing at no point. And I find it really, really interesting. And I think I've said this to you before, because do you remember when we had Christian on here?
See.
And he said he met Sam Neill and he brought up Jurassic Park.
Oh, yeah.
And as soon as he brought it up, Sam Neill was like, left and just didn't want to talk about it. So I'm like, clearly he doesn't enjoy being attached to that. So why would he come? To me, him coming back implies that he really liked the script and that it was going to be really good. So why was it terrible?
Oh, see, I don't think that's the case. I think
it was a lot of money.
I don't even think they had a script when they pitched it to the Legacy cast.
That's fair.
I think they literally went to the three of them and said, hey, this movie, we really want to be a celebration and a conclusion to the entire saga.
Yeah.
The entire franchise. And I think that's probably what drew them back, knowing that this was definitively the final one.
Yeah.
And that they would get to wrap up the character arcs.
Yeah.
I think that probably brought them back, and then they got on set. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those movies where the script was being rewritten every day on set.
Yeah.
It's that messy. I think I've got to believe that the cast were just as disappointed in the script as the rest of us.
Oh, they have to be. They have to be, which is why
it had to be
so
the promise
shocked that
of what
they
it
went
could have
back.
been.
Yeah.
The promise of what it could have been.
Yeah.
Was intriguing. What it turned out to be was not.
I also feel like on paper the plot could have sounded interesting. It's just that they didn't pull it off. Anyway, okay, let's wrap it up. We gotta go.
Let's. What's your what the fuck of the week?
Do I have to have one?
Yeah, my what the fuck of the week this week is...
How can two movies that could have been so good have stumbled across the exact same problem and ruined them?
What are the odds that the two movies we saw together would both be two movies
in one?
Both movies have two movies in one movie.
So bad. Okay, bye.
Okay. Thanks for listening. Sorry our reviews were messes, but truly,
yeah,
these movies were
insane.
All over the place. So
absolutely insane.
One of these days we'll do a structured review, but today's not that day.
No, it's not. Okay.
Okay, see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.